Hello everybody. In 1976, I was stationed aboard the USS Midway aircraft carrier, that's CV-41. And I was out there with 3 Marine Corps RF4B Reconnaissance Phantom jets on a detachment out of El Toro, California. I was in charge of the avionics at the time with Gunny Lockwood. It was the most exciting time of my Marine Corps history, more exciting than Vietnam anything. I was a gunny then, and I also had the CPO privileges, so I got to live in the CPO quarters aboard the ship. It was great. Also volunteering to be the flight deck safety officer when I had some time off, I was up on the deck a lot looking for trouble to happen, which didn't actually happen very often. I am going to point out a few of the facts along the way and hope you enjoy your ride. Well, the first fact that I'd like to point out to you is the Midway, that's CVB-41, was commissioned on September 10th, 1945, and became the namesake of its class. It only took 17 months for Newport News Shipbuilding to actually build the revolutionary carrier, which was designed before computers were even invented. The workers toiled around-the-clock shifts following handwritten blueprints that weighed 90 tons. Now that's equivalent to 35,500 reams of paper. I mean, can you imagine trying to do that today? I don't think so. But they did it all in 17 months. That's amazing. The Midway was decommissioned in San Francisco from 1966 to 1970 for massive modernization. It had to be overhauled and to make modifications to adapt to the jet age. Did you know the helmsman who actually steered the aircraft carrier couldn't actually see outside? He relied strictly on numerical navigation headings. Well, helicopters were largely unproven at the end of World War II, and in 1946 helicopters actually were pioneering sea rescues from the Midway during Operation Frostbite. The following year, all the carriers had helicopters assigned to them permanently. The ship has 4 propellers, and it could generate a maximum ship speed of about 33 knots. That's about 40 miles an hour. And if you had a 40 mile an hour headwind, it was 80 mile an hour up on the flight deck. You cannot believe how bad it was. The ships are about the height of a 20-story building, and approximately 3 stories are actually below the waterline. Each carrier had about 1,500-man air wing, and that was comprised of the flight deck personnel. About 250 of those were actually the pilots trained to fly the various aircraft. They were in squadrons. and only the very best aviators were qualified to land at sea. The flight deck's landing area was just only about the size of a tennis court, and the landings really controlled crashes occurred at 150 knots, only 45 seconds apart. On the bow, the Midway used 2 catapults, and they resembled a double-barrel shotgun. Every 30 to 45 seconds, they shot a 20-ton aircraft into the air, accelerating from 0 to 150 knots in less than 3 seconds. It was absolutely amazing to watch all this go on. Well, the carrier actually carried about 4,500 men, and there was only about 5% were the aviators. Our RF Phantoms had inertial navigation systems that had to align using the Sperry Univac device. It wasn't very reliable. The Midway's flight elevator could actually lift 100,000 pounds up to the flight deck in only 10 seconds. The laundry on board does 4,752 pounds of clothing every 12 hours. Every day, hundreds of 40-pound laundry bags were hauled up from the laundry all over the ship. The anchors weighed 20 tons. There were 1,800 feet of anchor chain, and every link in the chain weighed 156 pounds. Only brief ports of call were provided for any liberty from shipboard duties. You know, sailors who worked on the Galley, they sometimes prepared more than a ton of potatoes for just a single meal. And other menu items that we liked was the meatloaf and the mac and cheese. This was exciting. I was off duty and filming traps from the aft eye when I saw the F-4's left wheel missing. Then a warning when the air boss said, "Raise the barricade, this is not a drill, not a drill." Here's what happened, and I'm blown away at how it ripped right through that barricade. The only thing that kept it from going overboard was the broken axle on the left main landing gear hitting the fence around the perimeter of the ship. The total fuel consumed on a 5 or 6 month deployment was enormous. Depending on the state of the sea and how fast the carrier was sailing, a Midway ship consumed about 260 gallons to the mile, the equivalent of just 5 boat lengths. You know, during Operation Frequent Wind, some Midway sailors actually gave up their bunks so the children of the evacuee families could stay together for the first few nights on their way to America. Well, the Midway-class ships were all dismantled for recycling, but the Midway was the exception. After serving a whole 47 years, the longest of any aircraft carrier in the 20th century, it left Navy's mothball fleet in Bremerton, Washington to journey to San Diego. In 2004, it became the USS Midway Museum. Today, it's the most visited floating naval museum in the world and called the gold standard of naval ship museums by the Boston Globe. I'll tell you what, it's Midway Magic then, it's Midway Magic now. Well, each carrier had a complement of 4,500 men and was organized like a small town. Below deck, the sailors functioned in neighborhoods that emphasize efficiency. Nearly everything in a normal town could be found inside the carrier's city limits of 1,000 feet by 200. Restaurants known as galleys, the laundry, a post office, the police, and jail, a newspaper, a hospital, radio and TV station, city utilities, desalinization plant, church services, and much more. Some entities operated 24 hours a day. Workers worked 7 days a week and 12 hours a day. Well, the volume of supplies required to keep these cities afloat were staggering. 240,000 gallons of fresh water daily, 100,000 gallons of fuel daily, 40,000 pounds of laundry weekly, 70 tons of food weekly, and even 1,500 haircuts weekly. Bakers baked 1,000 loaves of bread every day, while cooks prepped 3,000 pounds of potatoes for a single meal. Coffee makers could collectively brew 10,500 cups at once. The ships also had librarians, post office clerks, chaplains, dental technicians, electricians, welders, bakers, cobblers, bookkeepers, carpenters, lawyers, butchers, doctors, and more. Mail Cod carried our mail every day on board. It did not need to be launched with the catapult. You never know if you don't ask, so I asked the Starbird helicopter pilot if I could hitch a ride, and he said yes. Love those Navy guys. What I wound up filming from the Starbird was our own Marine Corps Detachment CO, Major Bob Spooner, doing touch and goes with his RF4B during the official speed test on the Midway. There was no birds on deck when they were doing the test, and it was pretty exciting. I asked if they could hover so I could actually get Major Spooner's launch. They said yes to the old gunny. So if you know someone that was in the Navy or Marine Corps, or especially someone who was actually stationed on the USS Midway as I was, please thank them for their service from me and pass this video on. I'm sure they'd really appreciate it. Semper Fi.